Here we have a SAT math question. Okay, let's go with the information. There is a quadratic function given over here. The function g is defined above where p and q are constants. The graph of y equals to g of x is a parabola that has a vertex at the point m comma n where m and n are constants. If g of -6 equals to g of -1 and q is greater than 0, which of the following must be true? So there are two statements. The first statement is p is less than -2/3 and the second statement is n is greater than 12. Okay, now let's consider this particular information. That is g of -6 equals to g of -1. Let me write the stuff over here. G of -6 equals to g of -1. Okay, to evaluate g of -6, what I have to do is I have to plug in -6 for x into the given function over here. So when I do so, I'm getting p times -6 the whole square, -8 times -6 positive q. That is, I plugged in -6 for this x over here and here. And the same thing we have to do on the right side to get to evaluate g of -1. That is, we have to plug in x equals -1 into the function g of x. Then I'm getting p of -1 the whole square, -8 times -1 positive q. So when I evaluate this -6 whole square is 36. 36 times p is 36p. Negative times negative will become positive. 8 times 6 is 48 positive q equals to the evaluation of -1 whole square is just 1. 1 times p is p. Negative times negative will become positive. 8 positive q. Okay, now we find a positive q on both sides. So if I subtract q from both sides, I'll be able to eliminate q and I'll be getting the equation in terms of the constant p. So that I can verify the first statement easily. Okay, now let's subtract q from both sides. When I do so, this positive to negative q will cancel out. I'm getting 36p positive 48 equals to p positive 8. Now I got the equation only in terms of the constant p. Now we can solve for p in this equation. So here the constant p appears on both sides of the equation. So if I want to solve for p, it has to appear on only one side of the equation. So let's get rid of the p on the right side. For that, I have to subtract p from both sides. Okay, now let me continue the stuff over here. So 36 p positive 48 equals to p positive 8. Okay, now let me subtract p from both sides. Let me do it. And also to isolate p on the left side, I have to get rid of this positive 48. For that, I subtract 48 from both sides. So now positive p, negative p will cancel. Positive 48, negative 48 will cancel. So when I combine 36p, negative p, I'm getting 35p equals to, so on the right side, when I combine positive 8 and negative 48, I'm getting negative 40. So now I divide both sides by 35. So let me do it. This 35 will cancel. And so here both 40 and 35 have the greatest common divisor 5. 5 goes into 35 7 times, 5 goes into 48 times. So I'm getting p equals to -8/7. Okay, now so if I find the exact value of this one, -8/7, I have to use a calculator. When I divide 8 by 7, I'm getting 1.142. Since we have negative sign over here, it is equal to -1.142, and it's a long decimal. It keeps going. Okay, now we have to check this value of p is less than this -2/3. So for that, we have to get the value of this -2/3. So for that, we can use calculator. When I divide 2 by 3, I'm getting 0.666, and this one also has a long decimal. Okay, now what we can do is we can mark the value of p, the value of the decimal value of -2/3, that is -0.66, and so the value of this -8/7, that is -1.142. Let's mark these two values on real number line and we can verify. Okay, let me write it. So clearly this -0.66 is greater than this value. So let me mark it out here, -0.66, and here we have -1.142. Okay, so clearly this -1.142 is less than -0.666. Actually, the fraction form of this value is -2/3. The fraction form of this value is -8/7. So this is the value we get for p over here. So the value we get for p over here clearly is less than -2/3. So the first statement over here is correct. Okay, now we have verified the first statement, and now what we need to do is we have to verify the second statement. Okay, so for that, let me erase some work what I've done over here. Okay, just now we got the value of p, that is -8/7. Now we can plug in this value -8/7 into the given function over here. So then I'm getting g of x equals to -8/7 times x square, -8x positive q. Since y equals to g of x, even we can replace this g of x by y. Let me do it. So instead of g of x, we can write y. Okay, here now we got a quadratic function. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to consider this particular stuff, that is g of -6 equals to g of -1. So let me know that y equals to g of x. That is, so these two y values are equal. So that is when x equals to -6 and x equals to -1. So the value we get for y is the same. So in a quadratic function for two different values of x, if we get the same value for y, then the average of the two x values over here is equal to the x coordinate of the vertex. Here x coordinate of the vertex is m. So that is the average of these two values, the -6 and -1 equals to m, which is the x coordinate of the vertex. So therefore m equals to -6, -1 divided by 2. So this is the average of -6 and -1. So then we get m equals to -7 over 2. Then we get m equals to -7 over 2 is a -3.5. Okay, now I got the x coordinate of the vertex. Then the given vertex m comma n equals to -3.5 comma n. Okay, now I got the vertex -3.5 comma n. So according to the second statement, n has to be greater than 12, and we have to verify it's true or false. Already we have verified the first one. This is true. So now we have to verify the second statement is true or false. That is n. Actually, n is the y coordinate of the vertex. So that is the y coordinate of the vertex is greater than 12 or not. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Desmos graphing calculator. In Desmos graphing calculator, I'm going to give this quadratic function as input, and also we have to remember there is a condition for the value of q in the question, that is q has to be greater than 0. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this quadratic function as input, and I set q is greater than 0 in Desmos. So in that case, the y coordinate of the vertex has to be greater than 12. If the y coordinate of the vertex, that is the value of the n, is greater than 12, then the second statement is true. In case if the y coordinate of the vertex is not greater than 12, then the second statement is false. Okay, now let's go to Desmos graphing calculator. Here we have Desmos graphing calculator. Now in Desmos graphing calculator, I'm going to give this quadratic function as input. Okay, let me give the input over here. So that is y equals to -8 over 7 times x square, -8x positive 2. Okay, now here we have there is an option as slider for q. So just click on q, then we'll have a slider over here, and so like let me set q, the value of q as 0. 1 second. Okay, so already we have seen the condition in the question, that is the value of q has to be greater than 0. So if I want the value q has to be greater than 0, then I have to move the slider to the right, so that here now the value of q is 0. So if I want this q has to be greater than 0, that is positive, it has to be moved to the right. When I slightly move to the right, I'm getting q is equal to 0.1. Even the value 0.1 is greater than 0. Now I have the value of q is greater than 0. Now let's go to the vertex of this parabola. And so the vertex y coordinate means that's value of n has to be greater than 12 if I want the second statement has to be true. For that, let me check this vertex over here. So here, when I click on the vertex, I'm seeing that -3.5, comma 14.1. So that is when the value of q is 0.1, that is greater than 0. So we get the vertex -3.5, comma 14.1. So the value of n we get over here, I mean the y coordinate of the vertex is 14.1, which is greater than 12. So clearly the value of n is greater than 12. Okay, now let's go back to the original question. Here we have the original question. Already we have verified the first statement, that is p less than -2 over 3. It's true. Now we have verified the second statement, that is the value of the y coordinate n is greater than 12. This is also true. So both the first statement and second statement are true. So now in the given answer choices, we have to choose the one where we get the true statements. So clearly the correct answer choice for this one is option C. That is the statement 1 and 2 are true.